be installing the Antz Performance air intake and battery relocation kit today. So at the moment the car's just got a pod filter on it with the blow-off valve blocked off. So just do a couple of quick pulls just to see what that sounds like, so then we can do some after ones and hear the difference. It's reasonably loud and you do get a good flutter from the blow-off valve being blocked off at the moment, but with the new intake it should be even more. So just on a gentle pull we can hopefully you can hear it over the wind noise. But yeah, you do get a fair bit of induction noise. But with this relocation kit, it'll basically get rid of all that and put everything over to the driver's side. So you just got a 4-inch pipe coming straight out the turbo and the boxed off pod filter, and then the battery will go over to the passenger side. So we'll go through all that and have a look what's involved putting that in. Alright, so this is what I've got at the moment. Normally you got an Airbox lid there with just a panel filter, so I've taken the lid off and just that 90-degree bend with a pod filter on it. So basically this kit is going to, that Airbox is going to disappear, all of this pipe work, this stuff here, and this crossover pipe, and this noise suppression thing will all go. That's where the factory blow-off valve used to go, between there and there, so I've got them blocked off. That will remain blocked off there because there'll be nowhere for the blow-off valve to go to. And then basically, yeah, that goes down, this comes down into the turbo, and then this battery and everything is going to end up back over that side there, because the air filter will be here in a partitioned off box to make sure it doesn't get too much hot air from the engine bay. Alright, so this is what comes in the box. Obviously we've got the air filter here. New battery cables, because you'll see what happens with the original ones, but you need to set up some new ones for the battery being on the other side. Looking at some hose here. I assume that's if you want to plumb back the blow-off valve. That is a stopper for the blow-off valve where it goes on the elbow. I already got one on there, so I probably won't need to use this. Get a few hose clamps. This is the silicon elbow that goes from the turbo inlet, so I've only got the factory turbo, which has the smaller inlet, and then that goes onto the 4-inch elbow, which the pod filter then goes onto. This is the 4-inch elbow here. It's got a little port welded on the side, so we'll work out what this is all for afterwards. So that, and then this is the, looks like the battery tray, so that will now be going over on the passenger side. That's your battery tie down hooks. Got some fasteners in there. That's the clamp for the battery, nice little logo on there as well. And then this is the Airbox, so the side and the top, so we'll have a look at that as we start putting it all in. So first thing I'll do is just take the battery out, so it's just a 10mm spanner for these. Just need to make room for this filter housing. And give us access to the pipework and to the turbo connection down there. So this will mean for me I'm going to have to rerun the wiring for my sub amplifier. But when I put this in, I was mindful of this kit, so I left enough length to be able to get back over the other side. So I shouldn't have too many issues with that. Now, according to the kit, you don't actually reuse these terminals, they don't get reconnected. You're just supposed to tape them up and tuck them out of sight because you get new cables and terminals with the kit. So I don't know whether I want to do that yet, because this is basically the only connection you need to keep. And so you've got two cables here, one of them is to that and the other one goes to the starter motor, starter motor alternator over the other side on the car there. So I'm wondering whether I can get away with just re-crimping the one that comes from the other side here so that I don't have a live terminal flapping around in the bay. Even though it will be covered in this and taped up and out the way, I still would prefer to do it properly because I'm not going to reverse this. This will be staying like this. So let's get those undone, and of course that's larger. Must be 13. Yeah, so that's a 13 mil, undo that one. And also the benefit of this kit is I should be able to put a larger capacity battery in, because this is the standard one. It's obviously limited by the size of this plastic housing. And quite often, and it's reported with a lot of Ford owners, is you see the low battery volt warning when you go to crank it over, and I think it's just because the battery is a bit too small for what it really needs to be. So now, I should be able to get this out of the way. And apparently it's just that clip there. And we're done. Alright, so the next thing I want us to do is take this factory cooler pipe off. So you might find there's a couple of plastic caps over here so that you can't actually see that. You just basically flick them off with a flat blade screwdriver and then you can get access. Now this one's a bit more tricky to get to, might be better with a spanner in there. Doesn't help that everything's super hot in here. So eventually when I do a new intercooler and pipework kit, this factory pipe here will get replaced, because these apparently are known for leaking, because the seals aren't very good after all the years. That now gives us access to basically start taking off all this factory intake crossover piping. So we'll have to take the bits off the turbo, undo some Torx bits there, and then that will let us take all of this off. Alright, to start with, we'll take these clamps off here, off the turbo. Let's get these nice and loose. could disassemble this into sections if you want, but I'm just going to pull it all off in one big piece. So I've just got a Torx screw on here. Need to crack that one out. It looks like the whole thing's unscrewing, so I have to see what that. So that one there, and there's also another one over the back here. And then the last thing is just this breather hose here. Clips from there, and then it should be everything. Now, one other thing they do say to do is apparently this here gets in the way of the pipe coming out here, so they do actually want you to put a bit of a kink on this. They say to bend it forward and down a little bit, but you have to be really careful with these pipes. Because you don't want to put a crack in them, because they are a hard formed pipe. So I'll get the elbow and we'll do a test fit, and then we'll see exactly what we need to do. Alright, I've just been doing a bit of messing around because it's a bit more fiddly than I first thought it was going to be. The angle that you have the silicon connector at is really important to get the elbow going in the right spot. I just went to test fit the pipe, and you can see there's absolutely no way in hell that that's going to fit. Of course, being a bloke, I didn't read the instructions, and if you do read the instructions, it clearly says that on the underside of this cooler pipe here there is a bolt that you've got to undo, because there's actually a metal bracket here that holds that pipe in place. So once you undo that, you can actually move this and get the clearance to get over this, because this kit is supposed to fit with the factory cooler piping. So we'll give that a shot, and oh, that's quite tight. See if we get any success. Alright, so I had a bit of a battle to get this on. Basically took the whole bracket off. It is really tight, and it's that tight that this plastic pipe is actually compressed a little bit in there. I can't get it to fit any better than that. So it's going to have to stay like that until I get my new intercooler and pipework kit. So I'm hoping that these are going to stay sealed, and I'm not going to have issues from the pressure blowing these pipes off. Only time will tell with that. Now it comes with this piece of hose. I'm actually assuming that's for this breather, because this breather used to be connected to the crossover pipe. So I'm just going to try and keep this as short as possible, and I'll probably bring it in front of that there, just so that it doesn't sit near the real hot part of the turbo, because if I was to go like that, it could sit down there and rest on that, and obviously being that it's going to have oil vapor in it, it could cause a fire, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to get some sealant to put on this bung before I do that up, and then I'm just going to shorten this down. I might even go like that, because that should stay well enough away, and then we'll be able to clip that on. I'll be able to tie this up. I am just going to tape these up. I'm not going to bother doing what I was going to do before, and then put the pod filter on, and then that should be pretty much the airbox side done. I didn't see anywhere in the instructions, but there is actually a little hole down the bottom of this side plate here that lines up, and I'll just put a little stainless 5mm screw through there and a stainless nylock just to sort of hold it together a bit better, so that it's nicely located, and then once the lid goes on, it all sort of interlocks around this, and that'll clamp everything in place nicely. Alright, so I've got my breather hose connected on now, so you can see that comes in here. I've got the battery cables taped up and tied away, and there's actually a little hole down here, I've just cable tie them so they just sit down at the bottom there out of the way. I've had to reposition my HID ballasts a little bit because they're in the way of that plate, but they're tied back in now. Just have to make sure that's not on the top, because this plate for the top of the airbox sits there. So now ready to put the pod filter in, and it just fits. There's not heaps of room because you've got this here, and also your wiring there, so it's pretty tight fit in there, but it does go in. So squeeze that, so that's in there, and just going to get a screwdriver into that. So that's all secure. And now this lid should be able to just sit in here like this. So it clips in like that, and then you just have to make sure that these holes line up. And then put the bolts in. Alright, so now you can see you've got the lid on, fuse boxes all back together, and it all fits up pretty well. So I've got factory cooler piping, that new breather hose over there, and the new elbow going straight down to the turbo, so it gets rid of all that intake pipe that used to go across the top of the motor, and also rid of that noise suppressor cone. So now all the work's going to be over here, getting the remains of the old airbox out so we can fit the battery tray and everything in, so that should be fun. Alright, so now we've got to move the remainder of this airbox out. Because I had the lid off with the pod filter already, a lot of the mounting bolts have been taken out already, so with mine I've only got these two here and the bit that holds this snorkel in, so there's just a little plastic clip over here. Snip them out. And then it should be a matter of just undoing these last two bolts here, and should be able to get the remaining airbox out. Now one of these bolt holes becomes the new attachment point for the negative battery cable, so you can get the grounding on the chassis. That is in the instructions, they tell you to do that. So that's that, and then hopefully this just lifts out. Yep, just like that. Alrighty, so now we're ready to put some holes in to secure this airbox stand in. The kit comes with some self-tappers. And basically you're supposed to have the top tray mounted on there. You sit that there, mark your holes, put your self-tappers in. Now I'm not really a fan of using self-tappers to secure something like this down because the battery has a lot of weight. So what I'm actually going to do is I've taken the front passenger tyre off, which has allowed me to peel the guard lining back, which means I can get to the underside of this. So I'm going to drill some 6mm holes, and I've actually got some 6mm stainless bolts with some 6mm stainless washers and also some stainless nylocks, and I would be much happier having it secured in with that. It still has the potential to tear out if it hits a big shock load, but at least it's going to have a lot more surface area holding this bracket to the car, because you're only going to have the 2 bolts here and there's going to be one that goes up there somewhere. So I would feel a lot better about having bolts through it as opposed to just self-tapper screws going through some thin sheet metal. So I've already marked my holes, so now we'll drill these holes through. One thing you do have to be careful of is the washer bottle is here, but the holes we're drilling are up here, so there's nothing under there that we can hit, and I've seen that from the other side with the guard line removed. So just put these through quickly. So there's one. And there's 2. Alright, so now I've got that bottom plate securely fixed in with my nylocks. I can drop this top plate back in again and just sort of get it temporarily in place with these. And that then locks this in, so I've got the position for my final screw to go into the quarter panel there. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one because there's nothing behind there that would stop me from drilling through it. So just mark that. And I can take that back out and then drill my hole. One thing I forgot to mention as well is before I put this in, there was these little rubber bungs and they were in these little holes down here, and the old Airbox used to sit on top of that and it was just a vibration thing. They get in the way of putting this in, so you just gotta pop them out. So now I can drill my final hole. Deburr the underside of that. And it can get swapped out. Those 2. And the last screw there, I'll put this one in first before I do the other 2 up. So that's not going to go anywhere. And now just these up. And that's the battery tray in. So now I'm just going to put the battery and finish off the cables. I'm going to use one of these points up here for the new ground point. And then yeah, we'll be good to go. Should be able to start the car back up. Go for a drive. Alright, so this is where one of the original Airbox mounting bolts went. So I've just sanded the paint off there just to make sure we get a really good connection, because this is going to become our new ground point. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm just going to utilise one of the existing mounting bolts. And that should screw down and hold that in place nicely. Good, that's nice and firm, so that should be a nice connection there. Alright, so the next bit of this install involves you needing to be underneath the car, because we need to hook the new battery cable up to the starter motor. That's where we pick up the feed from, so it's a little bit hard to see, but it's this bit up here. So I've already cracked that bolt and we need to loosen that off, and here's my new cable here. So we're just going to piggyback those on, and then we should be able to connect upstairs and everything will be all good. Alright, so everything's connected downstairs. I will tie this up nicely so that it's all held in place and not flopping around. So this is the moment of truth. Do it that way. There you go, that's better. And I also have to remove my amp wiring, get it over here, and then the last thing I have to do is just trim these studs down because they're not going to clear the bonnet as they are. So what I'll do now is just give the car a quick start, hopefully. And hopefully it's all good. And one thing I've noticed immediately is having this thicker cable going straight from the battery to the starter motor. That started a lot quicker than it usually does, because before it went from the battery up to the fuse box and then from there all the way along to the underside here. So yeah, that's made a big difference now. So now it's just to tidy a few things up and we're all done. So now everything's complete. Got my battery in, it's all wired, got my amp cable run, everything's all been cable tied in. And then all the new intake stuff is done. So now all that's left to do is take this for a drive and see how much different it sounds. the Antz Performance 4-inch airbox put in, so let's see how it sounds compared to what I had before. It's a fair bit louder. And once I get my exhaust, get it tuned, should be a lot better.